So you started a TPT shop. I bet you are feeling a whole lot of emotions right now, right? When I first started my TPT store next door in the living room, I sat on that couch for so many hours creating my first resource and trying to figure out a logo and doing all these things. And then the more I got into it, the more I found that there were all these other things that you could also do. You could do social media and you can do email. And like, as I started learning more, I started seeing more to do, and that was a little bit overwhelming. If you are feeling excited or overwhelmed or whatever, it's okay, because I'm here to chit chat with you a little bit about some of my best advice for new TPT sellers. So go grab a drink. This is just water. I kind of wish it was coffee. Maybe later. And let's go chat about things you need to know as a new seller. First of all, just for reference, hi, I'm Becca. I'm an elementary music teacher. I do teach full-time, and I've had my TPT store for almost 7 years? I think that's right. I don't know, a really long time. I have been blogging and doing the TPT thing for years and years and years, and I've learned a lot, and I have shared everything I have learned here on this YouTube channel from the very beginning. So you can watch all the things about everything I've learned in the last couple of years and how to really build your business, and hopefully give you some insight that I did not have when I got started. If you're doing this whole TPT thing, then make sure you hit the subscribe down below so that you get access to all the future videos as well. And here we have notes. Let's get down to it. Okay, I have 7 tips for you today to help you on this TPT journey. And number 1 is make products that go together. This is probably the biggest mistake that I see a lot of TPT sellers make. And that is just kind of making a bunch of random things and throwing them up. Now, sometimes it's because you have a bunch of random things from your classroom that are kind of half done, and you can kind of clean them up and post them, and that's fine. And if that's why you're doing that, totally cool, totally understand, totally do it myself. But if you're going at this and being like, I want to make products, and you're like actively making them, then my suggestion would be to make products that go together. So maybe make like a unit activity, or you know, something that spans more than 1 week, or similar games, similar activities. The reason is because when you make similar activities that go together, there's kind of 2 big things. Number 1 is that your buyers will start to see what they can expect. So if they like one game and you have that same game but for a different concept, then they'll go and buy that one too. So maybe you have one about adding fractions, and then you have a game that's about subtracting fractions. If they like one, then they're more likely to purchase the other one because it's similar enough that they will use them both. The other thing is that when you have similar products, you can bundle them together with TPT's bundle feature, and then you have a bigger ticket item people can buy. So then they come and they're like, oh, I need this, you know, adding fractions game. And then they get the game, and then they're like, oh, this is in a bundle with a whole bunch of other fractions games, and then they can buy all the fractions games, and now they're spending more money than they would if they were just gonna buy the one product. So try to be strategic and make a list of maybe products that you like off the top of your head are like, oh, I want to make these things. And then try to think of a couple of things that could go along with them. You could either do things with the same content, so all adding fractions, or you can do things that are similar activities with different content. Either one is fine. You'll probably end up with both, but this is going to help you get people who come back to your store and people to purchase more than one thing at a time. If you're new around here, my dog likes to attack me the whole time that I film videos, so if you see me doing weird things over here, that's what's going on. Number 2 is focus on having really good product listings. If there is one, I made a lot of mistakes when I first started, but if there's one mistake that is bigger than the rest of them, it is not focusing on my product listing. So your product listing is all the stuff that is on the page where you're trying to sell your product. So that cover, all the thumbnails, those are all the images that you have, having a preview, having a video preview, having a description, all those things count as your product page. And making the most out of your product page will help more people to purchase your products. So I have a lot of products that even now, 7, 6, however many years later, I'm going back and I'm having to add a preview because I never put a preview on it, or I'm having to add thumbnails because I didn't put them on there, or they weren't very good. And so if I went back and restarted, I would really make sure that I utilized every part of that product description page, every part of that product sales page. And I know it feels like a lot because you're like, oh my gosh, I can put, you know, 4 photos and I can put a PDF preview and then I can have a video preview and then I can have a description. And it seems like a lot because it is. But I promise you, this is gonna be the biggest thing because this page is where you convince people that they need your product. And if you don't convince people that they need your product, they're not gonna buy your product. So the better you can do this page, the more service you will do to your product and to yourself to help make sure that you are selling as much as possible. This is especially important in those early days when you don't have a lot of products and you need to get more sales. So having better product pages is going to help with that. So use all of those different pieces of your product page. I know it's a lot, do it anyway. One thing that helps me is I never post a product on the same day that I finish it. So I'll finish a product and then I wait until at least the next day before I post it. And for me, this just really ensures that I have like the mental capacity to deal with all of the marketing pieces that need to go on there and all that stuff I need to do to help convince people to purchase my resource. So that's kind of how I like to do it, just as a simple way to, you know, separate myself from that. Now, if you need a little bit of help with all of that stuff, because it's a lot between the cover and the thumbnails and the video preview and the preview and the description, you can actually get my cheat sheet for getting started. I will leave a link to it down below, but it has videos and text, that's what we call that thing, text that goes through each of the different parts of your product. So it goes through and it's like, this is what the cover is, here's what you want to include in your cover, here's a video about how to create covers, and then it's like, here's what your thumbnails are, here's how to create, here's what you want to use for your thumbnails. And it goes through each of those things and really highlights each of them and shows you kind of what to include in all those and breaks it down a lot more. So I will leave a link to that down below. It's free. It's like a little slides presentation, so I'll leave a link and you definitely check that out to get some help. The next one also goes along with that, and that is to do product photography. When I say this, it scares a lot of people, but I promise it's really not scary. Instead of just posting your product with no photos in the thumbnails and the preview and all of that, or instead of using screenshots, use actual photos of your products. So in all of that marketing stuff, all that preview and thumbnails and stuff, you can use, again, you can use screenshots of your product, and that's fine. However, I promise it is so much better to do product photography. So when I say that, I just mean literally print out your product and take some pictures of it. It doesn't have to be a big, huge thing. It doesn't have to be scary, but it makes a huge difference when people can see how your product is used, especially if you fill in some of the things. You can film videos of yourself filming it in, and it makes a huge difference in really convincing people to buy because they can see it much better. This is especially important if you have things that are more complex. So if something's like a worksheet, that's pretty obvious when I look at it what it is. But if you have like a craft, or if you have like a little booklet or a foldable or any of those kind of things that take a little bit more time, that maybe don't look like a flat piece of paper, I would highly encourage you to make sure you're printing it out and taking pictures of them. I do this, I just print them all out, and then I take a few quick videos of myself filling in some of the things, not everything, and then I take some pictures of all the things. The other thing that's great about this is that when you start doing social media or anything else, you now have all these photos and videos you can use for social media. So when I need to post something on my Instagram, I have tons and tons and tons of photos. My phone is always like, hey Becca, you really need to delete stuff because I'm out of storage. Because I have so many photos and videos of my products, but it is so helpful to have those there and at my fingertips when I need them. So highly encourage you to do product photos. Just do it. I know it might seem scary. It's really not scary, I promise. Just print, click, click, click. Good. All right, number 4 is to make each product just a little bit better than the last one. Every time you make a product, you are, you know, learning more and you're getting better at things. And so every time you make a product, try to make it just a little bit better. Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, which is like a huge podcast and YouTube and the whole thing, and I would highly encourage you to check him out. But he always talks about being 1% better every time you do something. So if you're filming a video, get 1% better. If you're making a product, get 1% better. So that might be, okay, in this product, how can I make it a little bit better than the last one? Well, can I differentiate it? Can I add an extension activity? Can I add a teacher guide that just kind of tells the teacher what they need to do? Could I add photos? If it's like a craft, photos of what it's supposed to look like is really, really helpful so that people understand the craft really well. Those kind of things can make a huge difference, and they don't take up a lot more time. Just every time you make something, think, how can I make this a little bit better than the last one? And all that incremental getting better at things is going to make a huge difference down the line in the quality of your resources, and you will thank yourself later. Number 5 is talk to teachers. Whether this is on social media or even in person, talk to teachers and just ask them questions about their lives and ask them what their struggles are and what they're into. You are probably a teacher if you're watching this, but your struggles might not be the same as other people's struggles. For example, I am a person who likes to make all my own stuff. When it's time to lesson plan, I am so excited. Like, y'all, I love lesson planning. And when I have like a day in my, rotation that I'm like, this is lesson plan day. And when it's lesson plan day, I'm like over here, I'm like making a coffee, pulling all my books out. And like, it is so fun to me. I love it. And so when people complain about lesson planning, I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the best part. But that's why I create things on the internet, because I love lesson planning and creating those resources and really just figuring out ways to engage my students. And other people don't enjoy that, and they don't think that's fun, and they think it's too time consuming, they think it's too whatever. So if you talk to teachers, then you'll find that what the struggles are that are maybe not the same struggles as you have. So this can be done in any situation. Talk to people in your, school, talk to people outside of your school. I was talking to a lady that goes to my church who is also a teacher the other day, and she wasn't meaning to. I wasn't like interrogating her and being like, what are your struggles? Like writing things down. That would be creepy. But I was just, we were just chit-chatting. And as she was talking, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that so many people struggled with that. Or I didn't realize that so many people like go this route. And, how do they access information? Where do they go when they need something? Those are all important questions that you can ask. So you can ask them. Again, you can ask them digitally. You can talk to people on the internet. Or you can just talk to teachers, around. This is harder for me as a music teacher, but for those of you in a grade level, it's probably really easy because you're probably with those people all the time. But just talk to them and figure out what their struggles are, and it'll help you figure out how to create resources that are really going to help, as well as how to highlight the important parts of those resources. So is it like, oh, I need things that are ready to go? Then I'm going to make sure in my description, I'm going to say things like, this is ready to go. All you need to do is throw it on the screen and use it, or all you need to do is print it out and use it. Those are things you can highlight in your product description if you know what teachers are looking for. If you don't know what teachers are looking for, it's going to be really hard to figure out what to do. Plus, when you talk to teachers, sometimes they give you ideas of products to make, things that you should do. It makes a big difference. So just make sure you talk to teachers. Just casually. Don't interrogate anybody, but just, chit chat. All right, number 6 is the lesson that I have to keep learning over and over and over again. And that is to focus on one thing at a time. I am the world's worst multitasker. So this is definitely a do as I say and not as I do. But here is why I'm telling you this, is because I have always in my business bitten off way more than I could chew. It wasn't just, oh, I'm gonna do this. It was like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, and I get really excited about it, and you might be in that boat too. But I promise, the more you complicate things, the harder they are, because they're more complicated. So instead of trying to do all the things right this second, I really want you to take a step back, make a list of all those things that you would love to do, but right now focus on creating products. When I made this video, I was really thinking of like newer sellers, and to me, a new seller is someone who has less than 50 products. 50 products in the TPT world is pretty much where you're like starting to get your feet wet and really understand, who your buyers are and what they need and what kind of products you like making. And so if you're under that point, I would highly recommend that you make sure you're focusing on the product creation and the posting your products part of everything, and leave the other stuff for later. This is especially important before you're at 25 products. Once you get to 25, you at least kind of know what you're doing. And if you want to add, you know, Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is the kids are doing these days, then you can do that. But highly, highly, highly recommend that you focus on that product creation, the product listing as you are growing your store, so that you're not distracted. Because here's the thing, every time you add Instagram or email or blogging or YouTube or creating a whole other TPT store or whatever, those things take a lot of your mental energy away from what you're doing, because anything that's new is going to be inherently harder. Think about if you've been teaching more than 1 year, like your first year of teaching is just so stinking hard because you just don't know anything. But then the second year, you kind of know a few things. And so it gets easier as you go. And, you know, I'm about to start my 8th year of teaching. And, you know, in my 8th year of teaching, I'm not really worried about what I'm teaching on the first day of school, because I already know what to teach on the first day of school. My first year, I was like, what do I do on the first day? Like, I don't know. Just make sure they don't die. Like, really, what do you do? And so things like that, it just gets a lot easier. And so if you are in the beginning stages, focus on that until it gets easy. Once making products is easy, then you can add something else. And now you only have one new thing at a time instead of having 2 new things at the same time, because that's super overwhelming. Again, this is something that I constantly have to tell myself, and was just telling myself this morning, again, as I was trying to decide what I wanted to focus on for the next few months. And I was like, oh, but I could do this, but I could do this, but I could do this. And I get so excited about all the possibilities. And I'm trying to rein myself in, because I have found that the more I focus on less things at a time, the better they get. Even if that means I kind of, you know, focus on one thing for a while and then focus on something else for a while, it's okay. But the more I try to do at one time, the harder life is, because it's just is too much. So focus on product creation until you get to 25 to 50 products. And really make sure that you are not overcomplicating things by adding a bunch of extra stuff, and especially adding a bunch of new stuff that is going to be difficult and time consuming. And number 7 is one that may or may not be hard for you, and that is, don't compare yourself to other sellers. If you are going and looking at other sellers' stores, or you're looking at other sellers' Instagram, or you're watching here and maybe you're watching one of my income reports where I'm telling you how much money I made, it can be really easy to be like, oh my gosh, well, how come I'm not doing that? The first reason is probably because you're new, because things are very different when you are just starting out than when you're a few years in. So I heard someone say, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Make sure you're not comparing yourself to other sellers, because you have something unique to say. You have unique products that you can create, and you have a unique perspective that nobody else has. And you can use that to create useful, helpful things for teachers who need your voice. So don't compare yourself to other people. Yes, it can be fun to look at other people's stuff. I totally understand. But don't sit there and, like, especially don't make yourself feel bad. And if anyone is making you feel bad, intentionally or unintentionally, you don't have to look at their stuff. I give you permission. You can stop. It's okay. Use things as inspiration, but don't feel bad about them, because you are on your own unique journey. And let that journey be unique to you. So there are 7 quick tips for new TPT sellers. I would love to know a little bit about your store, so leave in the comments what your store is, maybe when you started, if you have an idea of what your niche, like what kind of products you're going to make. Leave all those things down below in the comments. I can't wait to hear all about them and read all about them. And make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get all the rest of the TPT info. And also, if you wanted that freebie, it's linked in the description so you can get it there. Okay, thanks. See you in the next one. Bye.